Thank you everybody for coming in and giving me your full attention. My name is Chico, and you know my lovely wife Gwendolyn and her boss is Miss Terry, and I have my sister here, and thank y'all for being here. I'm going to talk about processed foods, the risks, concerns, and the benefits. But because it's processed foods, you know we have a lot to cover, which I'm just going to stick with bottled water, which I'm just going to use as a demonstration, and we're going to talk about packaged meats. In the packaged meat section, we're going to talk about chicken in particular, because I'm a chicken lover. But here's a riddle that I shared with my wife at times. It's what's greater than God? What's more evil than the devil himself? Poor people have it, rich people need it. If you eat it, you die. And it's a very simple answer. It's nothing. So if you eat nothing, you don't make it in this world. So it's a very necessity in our life to try to eat something. But when we eat, sometimes we consume things that we don't know what we buy, who processes the food for us, and what are the risks, that come with it. Because with having a delicate stomach, I sometimes have stomach viruses, get sick, and I'm stuck at home for about a day. So you can imagine how it is to know how a broad subject is processed foods. Sometimes you don't really stop and think of what you're doing when you're eating, especially when you're dining. I know a lot of y'all dine. I know I love my chicken sandwiches from Chick-fil-A. So with that being said, I'm going to talk about a few publications, notices, and articles that I read. And they were online because food, you don't have to go to the public library to find out something. You just go to these organizations, institutions, and they'll let you know. I mean, we have at a local, state, and federal level people that protect us from harmful foods. But don't let me scare you. I'm not trying to scare you from eating, but I do want you to be informed by the time we get done talking. So there's going to be some people that miss out about this wonderful subject of processed foods. On the concern side, when I was younger, I was in Mexico, and my sister could relate. You go in a developed country where they don't have the system to process water, to purify water. And guess what? We're here in Jasper, Texas. And then we're recognized in Southeast Texas of having one of the best purified drinking waters here in the state, and probably throughout the country if I'm not mistaken. But I do have, like I said earlier, articles, publications that are listed by authors and these organizations that notify the public of what they're drinking and what they're eating. So I'm going to start out, like I said, with the benefits, or the concerns, the concerns. And one that brought my attention was elimination of bottled water and vented water through the state of Texas. Department of State Health Services, DSHS, dated in April 14th, 2017, which was last year, and the publication was the Senate Bill 202. So you can find that online at the website dshs.texas.gov, and you type in the keyword Senate Bill 202. I'm going to read it, and it says, effective September 1st, 2015, bottled and vented water operators, as defined in the Health and Safety Code, will no longer be required to hold certificates of competency. So they still have to have their licenses as being in operation, but they don't have to have that certificate any longer in their establishment to let the public know that they could have that certificate placed in the building or in the immediate area for the public to see. So that was something that I didn't even know myself, because we have here in town in Jasper, we have Buck Springs, and a while back I went and visited the owner and spoke with him, and he gave me a walkthrough of the bottle plant that he owns. And being that he's here in Jasper, we have a history with my family and my friends have a history with the owners. But little did I realize that they also have to go through local and state federal regulations. But the state of Texas, the state said that they no longer had to have a certificate. So that's a good. They're not regulated. I mean, we do have fresh water. I mean, how far can you protect the consumer from drinking water? I mean, we could go days on end trying to protect each other from drinking water, but eventually you have to drink something and take in some water, because if you don't, like I said from the very beginning, you die. Then, and the reason why I talk about that bottled water is I didn't really get to my point, was when I was in Mexico, 13 years old, on my 13th birthday, I got sick for drinking the water over at my grandmother's house from my relative's home, and it's not purified drinking water. So it's a good thing, it's a blessing to be here in Jasper and drink some good water, especially in the United States. So when we're talking about developed countries, think about it. When you go out and you buy the water, or you go consume water out of the fountain, or you buy it out of bottled water, because how far do those companies get regulated, and who's the watchdog? So when we get from drinking, we think about what we eat as well, because you just don't want to drink, because you could only take so much drinking, so you want to eat something, right? So then I got this thing about chicken, which is my favorite subject, but it hits closer to home, because it was a news release by the USDA, FSIS, was a food safety inspection. And the author of that was Autumn Canaday, Congressional and Public Affairs. She's a press reporter. This publication was dated in February 16th, 2018, news article. And it says, Pilgrim's Pride Corporation recalls ready-to-eat chicken products due to possible foreign matter contamination. And so when I picked that, I thought about when we had that pickle jar, and we got all the pickles out of the jar, and I found a BB of this size. Foreign debris, foreign objects inside that pickle jar. So think about it. I mean, if I was to bite into that, I'm it's already bad enough. I'd probably lose some teeth here and there. And then, but she states, she says, Pilgrim's Pride Corporation, Waco, Texas establishment is recalling approximately several thousand pounds of ready-to-eat breaded chicken patties that may be contaminated with strenuous materials, specifically rubber, the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Food Safety and Inspection Service announced today. So that was announced on February 16, 2018. That was this year. Think about it. We have February, March, April. 3 months ago. We have a Pilgrim's Pride located in Lufkin, Texas. And I went to school over there in Lufkin, and I did get to see the plant myself driving by. Most of it was drive by. I had friends that worked there. But, it's one of those things that raises issues, raises concerns. So, but I do have this here if y'all at the end would like to read some of this stuff. It's free for y'all to have. Then going from the concerns, when you have a concern, it raises the issues of what's the risk and what's the benefits. So I'm going to start off with the bad before I can talk about the good. And so with that being said, we'll talk about the risks. And I had two things when I thought about risks. And one article that was close to a risk, it's going to lead on because I'm talking about Pilgrim's Pride, and we're talking about packaged processed meat, which is packaged chicken. And that's also a risk. You know what I mean? So it just wasn't just a concern. It's also, it was close. It was a concern and a risk, right? Because when you think about it, you know, what are the risks? What are the dangers? So the risk I thought from Pilgrim's Pride is if you swallow that foreign material, you choke on it, or, you know, stomach virus is the most immediate thing that comes to mind. And then you'll probably end up going to the emergency room, paying to get to feeling better. And with that risk, I'm going to talk about that chicken. There's that risk of the package side, the foreign material, but then there's the actual food itself, the preservative side of the ingredients of the foods. And Harvard Health Publishing, Harvard Medical School, posted an article online titled "The Truth About Fats, the Good, the Bad, and the In-Between. Essential fats like polyunsaturated fat, lower LDL." So pretty much we're talking about bad fats, good fats, but one that caught my mind was trans fats, because off of chicken, when it gets processed, it is the byproduct of a process called hydrogenation that is used to turn healthy oils into solids and to prevent them from becoming rancid, the word rancid. So couple things in mind with that is meat has to be at a certain temperature, and you can't just eat everything just because it's a chicken. So some parts of that processed meat you just won't be able to eat, and you don't want to eat the saturated fats that go along with it. So when you're cooking, most of the time you want to cook with oils that are like olive oil, peanut oil, but nothing heavy and saturated fats. And I had that in mind because, you know, being prior military, I read a book about nutrition. So those things play a role. So I mean, it goes too in depth, but I don't go too far in there because it was leading from a concern to a risk. And it being packaged chicken, that was another risk that I thought about, was the chicken itself. If you eat too much of it, and if you eat the wrong part of the chicken, then later on it's a health. It affects your health in the long run. So that's a little bit of the dark side of processed foods. Now we get to the good things that I want to talk about, because there's so much nasty material when this, you know, you get scared. You're like, I never thought processed foods. You know, if you don't go in depth, you don't do the research, you say, well, everybody talks about it. It's broad in general. No, nobody talks about it in general. We just eat food and think that's what we could do. On the benefit side, I thought about what does processed foods benefit the consumer, your family, your friends, businesses, local, state, and federal levels. Again, I thought about sticking with the same organization that raises concerns and tells you and notifies you about the risk. Again, I used the USDA posted on their website or a few articles. And not only that, the USDA is a federal organization that lets us be aware of how this processed food gets to your dinner table at the end of the day. It is for our well-being, and it's just to raise awareness and to have a healthy way of consuming foods. I mean, processed foods is not a bad thing. It's just, it sounds bad, processed. So we have people that protect us even if your juice comes in containers, plastic containers, if you have, like earlier, what I'm talking about is that processed chicken, how it goes from the farmer's land to the factory and then to the grocery stores, and then you go as a consumer buying and putting it on your dinner table. So it's not that big of a deal, really, as long as you're informed about how it starts and how it ends up getting to your dinner table. But they posted a publication. The author was, again, the USDA Food Safety and Inspection Service. The date, it was last modified of January 21st, 2016, 2 years ago. And I found it on the web link. And you go into the link and you type in the keyword Federal Meat Inspection Act. A few key points of the Federal Meat Inspection Act that I highlighted were congressional state of findings. So the federal government, they post their findings and inspection, and one of the findings is how they inspect the meat and meat food products. Then they go on to a subchapter of the bill, talks about labeling, marking, and container requirements. And in those labels, they ask about who's authorized, what devices are authorized to make those labels, and who prints the labels on those packages. So just not anybody's going to go in with a copy machine, print out stickers and slap it on there and say it's approved by me, you can eat it. I'm not going to go by your word if you're not under heavy scrutiny to eat just something. I have to really know, and if you don't know where it's coming from, who's better to ask than the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture. Those are the guys that reach out to the farmers. They're the medium between the farmers and the market, and also to the consumer. So if you have a complaint about something you find or an injury that you sustained, those are the people you would talk to make a grievance report. And they also talk about in this subchapter 2, meat processors and related industries, who keeps up the record keeping books in these businesses. Because when they go under audit, the companies that sell you the product or sell the product to the wholesaler, and however that channel works, somebody has to be responsible. Somebody has to be under some type of audit by the federal government to make sure that product is not going to harm the general public. USDA also works with the CDC, Centers of Disease Control. Centers of Disease Center. Because you can get nasty virus that was cholera. E. coli. I get it confused, cholera. So safe meat and poultry inspection was on that finding. So here I have highlighted safe meat and poultry inspection panel. So they have to have a panel for seizure and condemnation, subchapter 4, auxiliary provision. So that's a provision that they put in the Federal Meat Inspection Act. Finally, I thought, what else is a benefit? And when you sit down at home and you're answering emails, you're reading the news on TV, every now and then something, a billboard catches your attention. And the one that caught my attention was the hidden crisis on college campuses. Many students don't have enough to eat. The author of that, Caitlin Dewey, dated this month on April 3rd, 2018, published by the Washington Post. She is the policy writer for the Washington Post. And in the article, the first paragraph, she starts off with, Caleb Torres lost 7 pounds his freshman year of college, and not because he didn't like the food in dining hall. A first-generation college student, barely covering tuition, Torres ran out of grocery money halfway through the year and began skipping meals as a result. So the benefit side, packaged foods, and we can feed a lot of people. Ramen noodles, for instance, you buy a box of that, a carton of that, you come in with 30. I mean, so it hits home, your values, your beliefs, especially as a society, what can process food. So that's the benefits. So all the ugly stuff aside, and we can make wonders by feeding the needy, feeding the hungry. So this is another one that, if y'all like, I'll print it out. Finally, your concerns, your risks, and the benefits. I'm going to go in closing. Processed foods are available in different styles and forms, from bottled drinks to packaged foods. After sharing some helpful insight from reading pertinent information, describing unfortunate real-life experiences, and the positive outcomes that can be brought to the table, do one thing: stop, think, take action before eating your next meal.